Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us. We have an empowering hour. I wish we had two because I have more information to share with you today than it's going to fit. So let's get to the one thing that a lot of people agree upon, health and nutrition. Raw fruits and vegetables provide health benefits. Is that surprising? Is that new? You'd think so. And it talks about the latest studies showing that the phytochemicals are non-nutritive substances in plants that possess health protective benefits, and why they are so important to us. And why they're important is because a lot of these phytonutrients, let's say the darkness of a cherry, or the purpleness of a grape or a plum, those are there to protect the plant. They were not there for us to benefit. The fact is we do benefit. The very thing that will be useful for protecting a plant is protecting us from oxidative stress. The number one reason that we die prematurely is oxidative stress. But it's on a spectrum. My sitting here speaking with you right now, I'm breathing, and the process of air going in, you create oxygen. That oxygen is used, and the byproduct, carbon dioxide, is then expelled through the lungs. You exhale. In that exchange, in a microsecond, you've created millions, if not hundreds of millions, of molecules. Those are called oxidative stress molecules. They, in turn, create free radicals. Now, when I go out for a run like I did yesterday, first a long, hard run before we met with the people at 90th Fifth Avenue, we do every week for a free class on training and getting people into shape. We're glad that people came yesterday. I produced a lot of free radicals. Running around Central Park, 6.2 miles, is equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes as far as free radicals. So what I did was, before my run, I took antioxidants. The antioxidants that help trap those free radicals, neutralize them. Vitamin C, about 2,000 milligrams. Quercetin, about 2,000 milligrams. Quercetin, in my opinion, is the most important unsung nutrient that we do not take into our bodies. You get it in apples, skin, you get it in onions, but not enough. You need it in supplement. And it can help keep your skin tight and vibrant. It rebuilds collagen, the connective tissue. If you're watching this when it's on YouTube, I'm now taking a line from right near the bridge of my nose, and I'm taking it across underneath my cheekbones to right at the top of my ears. Now there's a muscle band there, and your skin, this part of your skin, hangs on that. So when you're young, it's tight. But as you age and you get a lot of free radicals and you start stressing your body, drinking, free radicals, lots of them. Smoking, a tremendous amount of free radicals. Polluted environment, being around chemicals like a painter or a plumber or someone working with industrial chemicals, lots of them. That breaks this down. The free radicals break down your collagen. And now the collagen is no longer tight. It starts to drag down. As it drags down, all this skin and the fat under it, it drags down, and now this whole bottom part of your face gets jowly. And your skin begins to fold, and you get the turkey neck. That's because we lack quercetin and vitamin C. Quercetin and vitamin C is the best natural facelift you could give yourself. But it also helps your heart. It helps prevent cancer. It helps thin your blood. It helps prevent strokes. It's just phenomenal and inexpensive and non-toxic. In any case, so I take the quercetin, vitamin C, vitamin E, about 800 units from mixed tocopherols and tocotrienols, about 200 units. Ubiquinol, coenzyme Q10, about 200 to 300 milligrams. Magnesium, about 1,000 milligrams, some citrate. High quality cayenne pepper, about 45,000 units. That's one capsule. L-carnitine, that's with a C, C-A-R-N-I-T-I-N-E, carnitine, 1,000 milligrams. That helps give oxygen to your heart and helps prevent your heart from having hypoxia and lack of oxygen to the heart. It also helps the brain. Both coenzyme Q10 and carnitine are both powerful for the brain. Now, those are the basics. But by taking those at the beginning of a day, you're preventing the damage from oxidative stress during the day, probably for the next 4 or 5 hours. But if you go out for a heavy bike ride in high gear, a jog, tough swimming, especially swimming because you're breathing that chlorine gas, then what you're doing, you're using up your available antioxidants, and then those free radicals are created. And then, yes, here's the confusing part, because people think it's, well, then I better not exercise. To the contrary, we need exercise. It took me 40 years of research to prove, and I've done that now scientifically, that daily exercise, 6 days a week for 45 minutes, ideally twice a day, in the morning and the afternoon, both resistance and aerobic, is equal, listen to what I'm saying, it is equal to the finest diet and supplements you can take. So for those who just have a good diet but no supplements, you benefit about 10%. For those who take good diet and supplements, you're up around 15%. For those who exercise properly every day, you're at 15%. For those who deal with stress in appropriate ways instead of becoming distressed, you're at 15%. So now it's those three together, and still you're not at 50%. You would have to have a belief system. You would have to know who you are as a spiritual being, and you would have to live in harmony with those around you in a positive way in an environment that honors that harmony. That's the 50%. That's why people around the world that never take a supplement but have good belief systems live longer than we do if we're only focused upon the diet. And that's why I tell people, if you think that just having a good diet is going to mean a long and healthy life, you are deceiving yourself. I've met some of the most mean-spirited, angry, despicable human beings in the health movement. In fact, so discouraged am I by the health movement, I have nothing to do with it and have it my entire career. Let me tell you a little story. I knew about Carlton Fredericks. I knew about Adele Davis. They both had dynamic personalities. Adele Davis had a very warm and loving personality. I could not say that for Fredericks. But there were some interesting people in the health movement. So after I was invited at a very young age, after my first best-selling book, to come by Clinton Miller, a man I have a lot of respect for. He died not long ago. He lived a long life. He was head of the National Health Federation, and the National Health Federation controlled everything in health in America. If you wanted to be a nutritionist, if you wanted to lecture someplace, if you wanted your book to become known, you had to go through Clinton Miller and the National Health Federation. It was the clearinghouse. So he called me one day. He said, we haven't met, but I've seen you on Johnny Carson and Bert Griffin, all these shows, and there's no one young in the movement. How about coming over to our big convention? It's being held next week. So I said, okay. So I went there. It was at Columbus Circle. That's when the giant trade center was there at that time. And when I went in the back door. I was told, go around the back because that's where all the speakers were. And it was just really amazing. I walk in and I couldn't see anybody because of the cigarette smoke. The whole room was filled with smoke. Everybody was smoking. And then they had this guy comes over and says, hi. He says, we got a buffet table for all the speakers. And I remember seeing all these little pork sausages with toothpicks in them. And everything was crap food. I mean, I wouldn't feed this to anybody under any circumstances. So they had tons of alcohol, bad food, potato chips, French fries, hamburgers. And this is the health movement. These are the gurus of the health movement. And then I went backstage just to watch the speakers. And it was interesting because all the speakers were aligning their talks with something they were selling. It was like one big infomercial after another. And then I was looking at these people and I saw this big guy. I mean, he was huge. I'm suggesting around 400 pounds. And he couldn't walk. He had a cane. He was bald-headed and fatigued. And he came up there and he's got a bag in his hand. And he holds up the bag. He says, in this bag is the answer to all of our problems. And then he put the bag down. He never got back to it. I would come into him later in Canada. He came to one of my lectures. I didn't know it. He was supposed to introduce me. I didn't know that. And he did an hour-and-a-half introduction. And then when he left the stage, the entire audience left with him. True story. I'm standing back there, and the guy who sponsors this says, I don't know what to tell you. He said, well, it's over. I said, my lecture's over. I haven't had a chance to lecture. He said, well, they just all went outside with him. So I went outside to see what he was doing, and there were 3 tables lined up with books. And he did the same thing at this convention center. It was a man named Dale Alexander. And he said, and he one of the books was on reversing baldness, but he was bald, having the perfect body. He was 400 pounds, overcoming arthritis, and he had arthritis. And I'm thinking, am I the only one seeing this? Is anybody aware of this contradiction? And all the people in the audience were white-headed. And so I'm thinking, what am I going to talk about? And so when I went to go out, when I was introduced, everybody was leaving. Like they didn't care what I had to say. And it taught me a lesson. And afterwards there was a meeting, and they said, well, what area do you want? I said, what do you mean, what area? Well, we all have areas. And I said, I don't want an area. I just believe that we all could be a lot healthier. And I find there's a gross contradiction between what you're all saying and what I'm saying. Well, if you want to be successful, you want to have any career, you better go along. And I thanked him for his input. And I left. And I vowed never again in my life will I go to any of these damn health conferences, because I know the game. The public doesn't. The public is kept away from the truth. But for those of us who've been around and seen people, and know these people personally, which I do, no. Let me explain this. You don't ever have to go to a health conference to be healthy. You never have to read a book to be healthy. You never even have to take a vitamin to be healthy. But you sure as hell better have a good attitude and know who you are and be committed to something other than your basic needs or your ego needs or your insecurity needs. Because the only reason you're waking up each day is to see what you can take, what you can get, and what you're entitled to. Good luck with your life, friend, because it isn't going to last that long, and you're not going to be happy with it, and you're still going to blame someone else. But if you can wake up today and be appreciative of being alive, take nothing for granted, expect only what you can give give to others as a way of showing that you care about the society you live in, and learn when your beliefs no longer are of value or no longer support the truth, and surrender that belief and embrace something that does. That gives you a better opportunity to live a longer, healthier life. I can give you a perfect diet and perfect supplementation, and you're at 15%. Well, what are you going to do when your disease is at 50? And diseases almost never show themselves till they're at 50 on a scale of 1 to 100. 100's death. They're at 50, and you're at 15. So all you do is stick with the diet. You're going to reverse it? Never. You can slow down the time that disease finally wins. It's only when you reverse that by getting up, and that's going to require you going to a place that some of you, certain the Facebook people, are terrified of, because there's no fake friends in this world that you have to inhabit. There's just reality. And that reality means you got to get real and grow up. You got to let the adult out to make some important decisions, not the insecure child. That's how I help people reverse disease. So if you wonder how these people are coming on every week who've had terminal illnesses, who've had medically uncontrollable outcomes, and yet they're alive and well, disease-free, do you think that happened just because they took a lot of vitamin C or they drank a lot of carrot juice? No, they'd all be dead, every one of them. Okay. Also, this was good, I thought. Washington University, just one night of bad sleep boost amyloid beta in the brain. Quote, disrupting just one night of sleep in healthy middle-aged adults causes an increase in amyloid beta, a brain protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. And a week of tossing and turning leads to an increase in another brain protein, what is called TAU, which research has shown causes brain damage and also neurological diseases. Quote, we showed that poor sleep is associated with higher levels of 2 Alzheimer's associated proteins. There are tens of millions of Americans who are not getting a good night's sleep. Now, I'm not going to go over it now, but I've given you all the reasons. One of the most important ones is we go to bed with anxiety issues, things we have no control over or have not resolved themselves to our satisfaction. Write those all down in sequential order, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many there are. Just write your problems down that you want to address the next day. And that changes how the brain perceives them in the moment. Therefore, it releases those thoughts and signals from penetrating your consciousness, keeping you awake. Also, have no solid food or any food with carbohydrate within 3 hours. Keep your blood sugar down. Make sure you have iPad for light that's in the room and earplugs if you've got noise. And melatonin at 1 milligram can also help. Also, 5-hydroxytryptophan can help. That's the latest on health and healing. I'm Gary Null. Back in a moment. Please stay with us. Nice to have you with us, everyone. I broadcast Monday through Friday, noon to 1, all over the world, and Tuesday evenings from 7 to 8. If you should not be near your radio or computer and you'd like to listen, you can listen live over any portable listening device, a regular phone or a cell phone or computer. Here's the number you call to listen live: 712-775-6850. 712-775-6850. But let's say you can only listen at night. 98% of the people right now are listening on the archives at night. The number you can call if you're not at home, and again, you're out and about, 701-719-9976, 701-719-9976. Also, this coming Saturday, I couldn't do it this past Saturday, and I'm going off to Iceland and then Greenland the week after for 3 days. I want to get the latest filming done there for my new documentary. It's almost done. And by the way, I'll talk in a few moments. I'm going to read just a little bit of The Uninhabitable Earth because that freaked people out. Not my audience. They're aware of that. But for the average person, it freaked him out. What he didn't say in here, and though I thought it was a very good article by David Wallace Wells, is that I've got at least 15 of the world's greatest climatologists who say it's a lot worse than this and going to happen a lot sooner. In fact, how soon? Yesterday in Arizona, 9 people drowned, a 10th is missing, is presumed drowned, when a flash flood happened in an area where there wasn't any rain. And that's how quick it can happen. And they haven't had flash floods there. That's what happens when you get too much rain in one location and no one expects it. And we're going to get a lot more of that. In any case, I'll be doing a webinar this Saturday, and it'll be the only webinar I'm going to have a chance to do for the next 3 or 4 months. My schedule's packed. This one is on menopause. And premenopause, perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. Because an awful lot of women suffer and die postmenopause. And a lot of women suffer during menopause, and a lot of women have the symptoms beginning in perimenopause. So what can we do to reverse it? Have we? Yes. An actual clinical study, the only clinical study published on the issue that I did some time ago, and I'm going to be giving the protocols and answering everyone's questions. It'll be an opportunity plus showing a film. So it'll be about 3 hours. Starts at 3 o'clock. If you want more information on it, just go to GaryNull.com and you'll see live webinar. You can listen in, watch. It'll be fun and lots of information shared. That's this coming Saturday for the live webinar on reversing and preventing menopause.